I hate you.
What? Why?
For last Saturday?
What, the concert?
No, not the concert.
Oh, a tornado. So I take it we're talking tornadoes today.
On the show.
Good morning, Scallywags. I knew you were going to be jealous.
I had to work. I couldn't chase.
Well, and it wasn't even chasing. I mean, it was totally unintentional. So if you saw the video last week explaining why we didn't have any episodes last week, my weekend, two weekends ago, I guess it would be, started off with me falling asleep in a car and waking up to, limbs and crap flying at the car and 80, 90 mile an hour winds. So, and so if you didn't see that, you can go back and watch it. And the whole time I kept mentioning, like, I wish you were there. You're going to hate yourself for not being here. It was
I watched it. I wish I was there. Because you know what we got down here? We got hot.
Yeah. I mean, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it came out of nowhere. Well,
we got hot.
Right before sunrise. I wish the only thing that sucked about it, especially trying to catch footage of it and stuff, was just it was still dark. I mean, all of this happened just before sunrise. Right about the time the sun started coming up is when the winds kind of died down finally, and so all my footage is just black. I mean, you can't see.
It sounds amazing.
It was impressive. It was impressive. And I wish I would have added some pictures of, like, there was a downtown in Lee Summit. They had some big, kind of like art walk that we have here. Mm-hmm. So they had all these tents and stuff set up, and they posted pictures of it the next day, and it was just this tangled mess of just everything. But I mean, it was pretty intense.
I can imagine so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. I wish I could have been there. Wish I could have chased. Don't really care about the rock concert, but man, chasing would have been fun.
Concert was fun too. But yes, as you guys know, we love tornadoes. So everybody throws out their top 5 lists of stuff. So we're gonna do our top 5 favorite tornadoes.
Exactly. No particular order.
It's a weird thing to say, favorite tornadoes.
Well, okay. So favorite tornadoes is let's quantify it. Picturesque. These are all very picturesque tornadoes.
Yeah.
Did they cause a lot of damage? Unfortunately, they did. But these rank in probably the top 10 of all time. So these are our top 5 of the top 10. Sure. First off, being the Pilger, Nebraska twin tornadoes. This was a very picturesque tornado system that went through Nebraska back in 2014. Basically, they went through Pilger, Nebraska, this small, tiny town. Pilger's tiny. Like maybe the size of a supercenter parking lot.
There's really nothing large in Nebraska.
Cornfields in Nebraska.
Yeah. Large stretches of nothing.
Large stretches of nothing. Right.
That's what's large in Nebraska.
Had estimated winds of 166 to 200 miles an hour.
So
that's
EF4.
That's an EF4. Yeah. 18 miles long, 500 yards wide. So if you guys don't understand how wide these tornadoes get.
5 football fields.
5 football fields. There you go. 5 football fields. I think the biggest misconception about tornadoes, some people think, is they're small. They're small points of ground, and
I mean, and some of them are.
Yeah, some of them are little pinpoint fingers of God.
And a lot of times it's hard to tell because there's such like a cloud of debris around everything. So to know where the actual cone, that this is what the size was and everything like that, that's harder to pinpoint. But a lot of these on here are some pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
Big.
Basically, the town of Pilger was destroyed, leveled, wiped off the map of Nebraska. Yeah. Good thing is, though, only 1 death. That's always a good thing when you come across.
Because it's Nebraska.
Because it's Nebraska.
Large stretches.
We lost a lot of grain, though. We lost a lot of corn grain.
Yeah.
Mourn for the corn grain. But yeah, I've seen some of the photos shortly after this tornado went through, and the night and day photos are amazing. It's like a war zone. You hear everyone describe it's like a war zone, and it truly
really is.
Truly does look like.
Well, and like I remember, what was it? I mean, I want to say it was like 03 or 04. The one that went through like Stockton and Pierce City. I mean, Pierce City was almost completely wiped out.
Yeah.
And then the city of Battlefield, which is just
We're in
Well,
Battlefield.
you could-
Shotgun Milk Studios is like,
technically battle. Yeah, we are
yeah,
technically
we're like
in
a
Battlefield.
stone's throw from Battlefield.
And my friends Casey and Jen lived in Battlefield at the time, and the house that they lived in was, I mean, nothing happened to it. Absolutely nothing. No, not. I mean, pristine, completely. The house right next door, and we're talking. It's one of those neighborhoods where like you could stretch out between the houses and touch both houses, and the house next door was foundation. And it's so weird how that stuff happens.
How tornadoes work like
My
that.
mom's house in Battlefield, back half of the house, just siding ripped off, front half of the house untouched.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird how that works. It's just how swirling winds and small vortices.
And here's a word of advice to property management type stuff here in Missouri. Know this. A lot of people don't know this, but tornadoes love to follow the same patterns. And there is a subdevelopment that's basically between here and Clever that has been completely demolished 3 times, and they keep rebuilding on the same foundations. Guess what? It's a matter of time before number 4 happens.
It happens again. It's great.
Stop it.
The second one is going to be the Tuscaloosa tornado.
Yeah.
This was one of the earliest ones that I remember actually going through a big city. Tuscaloosa, Alabama or Mississippi?
Tuscaloosa, that's Mississippi.
Is that Mississippi? That's
We eat
Mississippi.
Tuscaloosa dumpling.
That's right. That's not a small town. That's south of Birmingham.
Which is another state.
Which is another state, but it's the next biggest. But it's the next biggest.
I
city.
know what you were saying.
It's the next biggest city south, and it tore up. Tuscaloosa. Tore it up. There are tons and tons of videos, guys, that you can go on YouTube and watch. Just endless hours of live tornado coverage, and if you haven't, I recommend you at least watch one, so you can see the not so much the eagerness, but the sense of urgency in some of these weathermen's voice as they're talking about the devastation happening.
Where was the? I want to say it was maybe in it was in Texas somewhere, I think. But there was one where it was a tornado hitting an airport, and it's like just tossing planes around and stuff. Where
I think it was
that?
Dallas, Fort Worth.
I wanted to say it was Houston, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, side thought.
So 80 miles long. Maximum path width was 1.5 miles. Maximum sustained winds in this EF5 rating anywhere between 190 or 200 and 310 miles an hour. Wow, that's incredible. I had a windy day. 30, 40, 50 mile an hour winds.
I mean, you think about this. Like you get out on the highway, where you're going 70, plus miles an hour, or whatever. Stick your head out the window.
Mm-hmm.
That's 60 to 70 miles an hour, depending on where you're at. And I mean, it doesn't seem like much if you have your hand out the window, but you put anything more than your hand out there, and you realize how strong that wind is. And again, that's 60 to 70 miles an hour. The deal that I was in up in Kansas City last weekend was, I don't have the facts on what the wind actually got up to, but I placed it somewhere between 80 and 90. I'm holding my phone in my hand like this, and the wind was trying to pull my phone out of my hand. And the car, I'm sitting in the car, and the car is just rocking back and forth. I mean, it was, and this is twice that.
Easily twice that. 64 people unfortunately lost their lives. 1,500 people were injured. And it was big enough that President at the time, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama visited, and he was quoted as saying he had never seen devastation like this. And he declared it a federal, not a state emergency, but a federal emergency in Alabama. Just all the videos are going to have links in below. These were the best videos that I could find of them without spanning hours of footage.
Oh, yeah.
These are short little clips. But yeah, Tuscaloosa was, again, it was unfortunate in a metropolitan area, but it was very pretty to look at on some of the tower cams and in some of the locations. The next one is probably, you're going to hear this a lot. Oklahoma is tornado central.
Oh, yeah.
In a discussion, and if you're in Oklahoma, the big tornado was May 3rd, 1999, when it went through Moore, Oklahoma.
The first big one.
The first big one. The first big one where it was, I think, in all honesty, that was the first cell phone tornado.
Yeah.
Because they were just starting to get those mobile phones out there.
Right.
A lot of.
Well, I mean, and not even so much that. I mean, yeah, you did have. Well, I don't know. 99. That's still a little early for the camera phones. I mean, maybe a handful of them, but a lot of people had like video cameras and stuff around that time. That's when they were starting to get smaller. They were a little cheaper. Yeah. So that's where you get a lot of that. Now, unfortunately, more is going to pop up more than once on this type of list.
Yeah, it's rough, but yeah, it is.
But again, they tornadoes, they tend to follow patterns. Like when they come through here, it's always the I-44 corridor.
Yep, right up the I-44 corridor. Yeah.
And which Springfield itself is up on a plateau, so you could have tornadoes coming down everywhere, and they'll hit Springfield and just bounce over us and move on. About once every 10 years or so, one will form right over us, and that's the only time we actually get one. And it usually is just on kind of like the outside of town, like the edges of town, except for that one that was about 10 years ago that went right through the center. And even I don't even think that was an actual tornado. It was straight line wind. There was a funnel, but it was a straight. It was more straight line winds.
There's one in 85.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That went down Kansas.
Yeah.
And then there was another one around the same time that was a little bit north of Battlefield and National.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was on National because my mom's best friend lived on that street.
Because that was the one that was like 10 years ago or so. Because I lived on.
This was like 30.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, well, the one that went through about 10 years ago.
Years ago.
It was right through campus, basically, and I lived right there on.
I remember that one there at SMS.
And
it was Dead Day.
Yeah,
it was Dead Day at MSU.
I lived on National and Bennett at the time, so we were literally.
There
you could
used to
see
be a gigantic oak tree out in front of the theater.
Yeah, it ain't there anymore.
It ain't there no more because it's gone.
It was. That night, that was one of the very few times. Normally, when this type of stuff hits, me and this idiot, we're the ones that are like, "Let's get outside,
let's go look and see what happens."
That night, I actually got in the basement that night. That was, because we could see it where we were at, and like we said, it was just the cloud. I mean, it was just the funnel cloud. It wasn't on the ground or anything. It was just straight line winds from that. But we watched the funnel go over us.
Yeah. We don't typically get anything close to these wind speeds here in Springfield or even in Missouri. I mean, very rarely does a Missouri tornado get above an EF2 or an EF3. Mm-hmm. Just at too many hills. Tornadoes don't like hills. They'll follow the valley. Now, if a tornado gets stuck in down one of the valleys, it'll ride that valley through the... so the Mora, Oklahoma tornado, 1999.
Ride it through the woo. Adam the woo.
Right the woo. There you go. It did kill 36 people, causing an estimated $1 billion in property damage. It was 38 miles long. It lasted on the ground 85 minutes.
Which
that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
It's an hour and a half just chugging along, doing its thing.
I remember when I was a kid, growing up, the place where we grew up, we had tornadoes all the time. Like if we get tornado watches here, they are almost guaranteed to get warnings there. Mm-hmm. And like the first one we did where it was twin tornadoes, and like that's not something you really hear of a lot. But I mean, I remember being a kid and watching four ropes on the ground collide and make one big one. And I miss those days.
And here's some more staggering information from that. 8,132 homes, 1,041 apartments, 260 businesses, 11 public buildings, and 7 churches were either damaged or destroyed in Moore, Oklahoma. Now, Moore is a suburb of Oklahoma City, of OKC. Yeah. But it's still, it's if you drive down through there, it's a good-sized little town.
Yep.
And that many buildings gone, wiped off the face of the earth, kind of gives you a little bit of impressiveness at Mother Nature.
So the next one hits a little close to home.
It does indeed hit up really close to home.
I actually know people that were in this one. I actually went up and actually got to see firsthand the aftermath of this one.
I drove down and took supplies to Joplin.
Yeah, and that is the 2011 Joplin.
Coworkers at the Home Depot that I'd worked with died.
Yep.
I was working for True Green Lawn Care at the time, and we had a substation in Joplin, and two of our guys that worked there. Well, there was 3 or 4 of them that had their homes completely destroyed. There were 2 of them though that were missing for like 2 days, and no one could get a hold of them. No one, like even their family didn't know what was going on. We finally found them, and they were all right. But yeah, there's some. Now this is probably one of the most documented ones that I've seen, as far as like your cell phones and stuff that. Like,
everybody was recording it.
Oh yeah, like there was a guy that was in there was a group of people in a gas station cooler, and
gas station coolers, the tire and lube bay at the Walmart.
Yeah.
I agree. This was probably one of the most documented as far as amateur documentation.
Yeah.
Joplin tornado, the costliest tornado in U.S. history at $2.8 billion.
Yeah.
Very photogenic until it got rain wrapped, and then when it's rain wrapped,
Yeah.
you just got to hope it doesn't come your way. Killed 158 people, unfortunately. 158 people, injured 1,500 others. Took out the only hospital in Joplin.
Yeah.
And it was St. John's. St. John's Hospital there in Joplin was totally just devastated.
I actually have the girl I was no, it wasn't that. It was anyway, vicariously know someone that worked there. It was a friend of mine's sister or cousin or something to that effect, but actually got to sit and have a conversation with her where she was talking about the windows blew out, and she watched about a 300-pound man get sucked right out the window. And I mean, it's you see the destruction of like the homes and things like that, but then when you hear some of the things that you don't normally hear that happen in these things, I mean, that's where it starts getting crazy.
And one of the neat things that happened out of that actually it made international news, that the next day, like the following sunrise, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel was delivering a speech at the UN. He had 15 minutes to make his speech. He gets up there, introduces himself, and says, "But before I make a speech, I would like to bring to everyone's attention of the tragedy that has just happened to the good people of Joplin, Missouri." And then he spent 5 minutes talking about, let's have a moment of silence.
Yep.
The Prime Minister of Israel.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things. It was eventually going to happen. You can only throw a dart at a map so far.
Well, and Joplin is right on the
right
Oklahoma
there on the
border,
border.
Yeah.
and so we already mentioned how bad they are in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one that I got to see firsthand on a few occasions, but I mean, it was just it's weird. Like I mean, I actually was supposed to actually be in Joplin that day, but I ended up going the day before. So that Saturday I was in Joplin and had planned on going back the next day and ended up not going. Which I mean is kind of a weird thought to have, but like it's weird to go back now. I mean, when going there during that, you couldn't recognize the city.
No, you didn't
at all.
recognize anything.
I mean, there were entire like housing areas, like I don't want to say housing developments, but like whole neighborhoods, I guess is what I'm looking for. They were just gone, and I mean, all you could see was just
fields and rubble.
Pretty much.
Fields and rubble.
You couldn't tell what street was what. You couldn't. I mean, it was surreal. Very, very, very surreal is the only way I can think to put it.
And our number 5 is again Moore, Oklahoma, 2013. The reason this was so kind of hit home to me because it was live, and not only did it go through Moore, Oklahoma, which in itself is a tragedy, but it gobbled up 3 schools, and it was in the middle of it was towards the end of the school day, so it's just really one of those things where the most prominent pictures you're going to see online of the 2013 Moore, Oklahoma is parents and first responders pulling rubble off of these schools trying to find these kids.
Well, that happened in Joplin as well.
Yeah.
It was like
it was like towards
right
the end
after
of the day. Yeah.
it happened right after graduation.
Right after
had left
graduation.
out.
Yeah.
So they, like, most of them were still there. Some of them had just gone home, and some of them were still en route to home.
So I mean, it was a 17-mile long tornado, 1.5 mile, almost 1.5 miles wide. EF5 again, winds well over 220 miles an hour. One of the most, again, we use that term here in the last 2 tornadoes, but it is easily one of the most documented tornadoes. Simply because you have helicopters. They take their tornadoes seriously in Oklahoma.
Pretty much the Joplin tornado, as documented as it is, was, this is a weird statement to make, but one of the most famous tornadoes in history until this one. If
look it up online, guys. There's literally anytime you go into Oklahoma to chase, there's football fields of chasers out there.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, you get tornadoes like this, and people get caught, and people get hurt, and people lose their lives. As an honorable mention, to kind of wrap this up, the El Reno tornado, just quite literally 10 days later.
Yeah, this one was
10 days later.
Absolutely insane.
Okay, when you're driving down the highway, you'll see these little bars on the side of the road. They're a tenth of a mile. This tornado was the largest tornado ever documented on Earth in the El Reno at 2.5 miles, 2.5 miles wide.
Yeah.
2.5 miles wide.
I mean, if you're traveling 60 miles an hour down the highway, start counting, and 2.5 minutes later,
you're at the
other side of this tornado.
There were.
I can't even think of like a good analogy to. You mentioned it earlier. It's Central Park.
Central Park, yeah, from end to end, not widthwise but lengthwise. That's almost 2.5 miles, and it's just absolutely huge. Can you imagine something like that going through New York? Wind speeds in excess of 240 miles an hour?
Couldn't happen, but okay.
I'm just saying. So yeah.
Could.
It's just not probable.
Yeah, not probable.
Although they have had tornadoes in Brooklyn and the Bronx.
Yeah.
I've got videos of it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's mainly just the bigger the buildings, the less chance of that, because there's too many obstacles and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Again, guys, you can go out and YouTube's got thousands upon thousands of tornado videos. There's even videos from the 2003 Battlefield tornado.
Yeah.
Go check them out. Just remember that you'll pretty much during the months of April through December almost.
But we actually have two tornado
seasons.
which is basically late March to kind of early June, really through June, pretty much. July is about when it stops. But then it actually comes back in late October through early December. We have a small second. We have a lot in November for some reason.
Yeah,
you don't think of that, but we here have a lot of November tornadoes.
So just take those watches and warnings seriously, and don't be like us and have to go out and see what happens.
So what natural disaster is your favorite? Put it in the comments below.
Let's end it on that note.
Make sure you guys check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Keep doing the YouTubes, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Push to 300, guys.
Yes. We love when you do that. And make sure you check that bell notification.
Yep. So we know when we upload.
Yeah. But as long as you're checking out the social media... There you go. Check us out on Facebook to get yourself one of these
show shirts. That's right. You get the lovely short sleeve that Shpoo is wearing and modeling right here for $20. You can get the long sleeves for $22, which if you don't know what a long sleeve is, it kind of goes down a little further.
Here. Yes,
and then you get a hoodie and prepare yourself for those cool fall and winter months.
Some places get cool in the summer night.
If you're in Alaska, for $25.
Yeah. So do those things. And we'll see you tomorrow for our favorite day of the week.
Hi, I'm Percy from Springfield, Missouri, and here's your Russian clip of the day.
Hey guys, thanks for watching that video. We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and if you liked what you see, go ahead and click on our faces to go ahead and subscribe to get all of our Monday through Friday stuff.
Indeed, and here's a couple of links down below that you can follow to watch more shows like it. Tons of great content right here at Scallywag Productions. We'll see you tomorrow.